Survival isn't just about fighting the enemy, it's about battling the world itself. For soldiers, the environment was often the deadliest foe: mud that swallowed men, jungles that rotted skin, cold that froze you in place. In these moments, a rifle and courage weren't enough. Survival demanded wits, gear, and relentless adaptation. From the trenches of World War I to the jungles of World War II and the frozen hills of Korea, each battlefield was a brutal classroom. The environment didn't care about your mission. It only wanted to break you. The survivors were those who learned to read the land, improvise, and innovate under pressure. Sometimes a good pair of boots or a dry place to sleep was more valuable than a weapon. Every piece of gear told a story of a problem solved in the heat of battle. How do you stay dry in endless rain, warm in deadly cold, safe from disease-carrying insects? The answers were forged in combat, not textbooks. These innovations changed warfare and survival itself. The lessons didn't die on the battlefield. They became the foundation of modern bushcraft. Techniques for shelter, warmth, and water from those wars are still used by adventurers today. Understanding these struggles gives us respect for both nature's power and human resilience. Survival isn't about the latest gear, it's about mindset and learning from the past. These are the lessons that help us face the wild today. World War I's trenches were a nightmare of mud and misery. Mud was everywhere, thick, sticky, and relentless, turning every step into a struggle. Soldiers lived in it for weeks, their clothes and spirits soaked through. To escape, they became builders, carving dugouts into trench walls for shelter. These dugouts, sometimes just cramped holes, offered a little protection from rain and shells, but were cold, damp, and unstable. More elaborate dugouts for officers had wooden beams and sandbags, but most soldiers made do with whatever scraps they could find. Corrugated iron, scavenged wood, and sandbags became precious materials for overhead cover. Duckboards were laid on trench floors to keep feet out of the mud, but nothing stayed dry for long. Rats thrived, feeding on the dead, and lice spread trench fever, causing agony. Poor sanitation led to diseases like dysentery. The constant shelling, fear of attack, and grinding boredom made life nearly unbearable. Every small improvement, a dry plank, a makeshift roof, was a victory. Survival was a 24-hour job, more about enduring the elements than fighting the enemy. The trenches taught soldiers to value every scrap of comfort. In this world, home was whatever you could build with your own hands. The fight was against the mud as much as the enemy. Endurance was everything. In the trenches, a soldier's uniform was his shield against the elements. Thick wool serge uniforms and greatcoats offered warmth, even when wet, a lifeline in the cold, damp trenches. But wool alone couldn't stop the rain. The trench coat, made from waterproofed cotton gabardine, was a breakthrough, lighter, drier, and designed for battle. Most soldiers improvised, rubbing wax into coats and wrapping feet in sandbags for extra protection. Trench foot was the enemy. Wet, cold feet led to infection and even amputation. Soldiers changed socks and rubbed feet with whale oil, a grim daily ritual. Boots rotted, uniforms grew heavier with mud, and puttees, cloth strips for the legs, were hard to manage. Clothing was flawed but essential. Soldiers learned to maintain and modify it to survive. Every day was a battle against the cold and wet. The will to endure was as important as any weapon. Gear was never perfect, but adaptation kept men alive. Survival meant making do and never giving up. In the Pacific, soldiers faced a new enemy. The jungle. Heat and humidity were suffocating. Sweat never dried, and uniforms stayed soaked. The jungle was a wall of green, full of hidden dangers and constant threat of ambush. Disease was everywhere. Mosquitoes spread malaria, leeches clung to skin, and fungal infections ravaged feet. Standard uniforms, designed for Europe, were too heavy and soaked up moisture. Boots rotted quickly, and clothing became a liability. Shelter was a challenge. Tents on the ground flooded and offered no protection from insects or snakes. Soldiers needed to get off the ground and away from the swarms. The jungle demanded new solutions for survival. Old rules didn't apply. Adaptation was urgent. The environment forced a complete rethink of gear and shelter. Survival meant outsmarting the jungle itself. Winning in the Pacific meant conquering the jungle's challenges. The military replaced heavy uniforms with lighter, quick-drying cotton poplin fatigues. Large pockets and camouflage patterns helped soldiers carry gear and blend in. The jungle hammock was a breakthrough, a nylon bed with a mosquito net and rainfly, keeping soldiers dry and safe above the ground. Footwear evolved too. The jungle boot combined leather and canvas with drainage eyelets to let water out and prevent jungle rot. These innovations made shelter and gear as vital as any weapon. A healthy, well-rested soldier could fight. A sick one was a liability. Rapid adaptation, solving problems and deploying new gear, became the norm. Nylon, new designs, and direct feedback from troops drove progress. The jungle forced the military to innovate fast. These lessons shaped modern survival equipment. In the Pacific, survival was about engineering as much as endurance. The Green Inferno changed everything.
After the jungles of World War II, American soldiers faced the frozen hell of Korea. The cold was lethal. Temperatures dropped to -40 with biting winds. Troops arrived with gear meant for Europe, totally inadequate for Korean winters. Frostbite and trenchfoot returned, crippling more men than enemy fire. Weapons and vehicles froze. Even medical supplies became useless blocks of ice. The psychological toll was immense. Cold drained morale and made every task a struggle. Soldiers wore every layer they had, but it wasn't enough. Boots froze to feet, rations became inedible, and the cold never relented. This disaster forced rapid innovation in cold-weather gear. The military learned that one thick layer wasn't enough. Gear had to be designed for extreme cold. Leather boots and thin jackets were replaced by new systems built for survival. The Korean War became a laboratory for cold-weather innovation. Every mistake was paid for in suffering. The lessons learned would shape survival gear for generations. In Korea, endurance and adaptation were the only way to survive. The secret to surviving Korea's cold was layering. Multiple layers, base insulation and shell let soldiers regulate body heat and stay dry. The fishtail parka became iconic. A tough shell with a removable liner designed to trap heat and block wind. It was big enough to fit over all other gear, a true lifesaver. Footwear was revolutionized with the Mickey Mouse boot, vacuum-insulated rubber that kept feet warm and dry, even in freezing water. Heavy, but they saved countless limbs from frostbite. Trigger finger mittens and pile caps protected hands and faces without sacrificing function. Every piece of gear worked as part of an integrated system. The lesson: stay dry, block wind, trap heat. This approach, born in Korea, is still the gold standard for extreme cold. Layering turned survival into a science. The right system could mean the difference between life and death. From muddy trenches to jungles and frozen mountains, war has been a relentless teacher. Survival meant adapting, innovating, and outsmarting the environment. Soldiers became pioneers of survival, developing gear and knowledge that still shape outdoor skills today. Each conflict brought new challenges and new solutions. The trench coat, jungle hammock, fishtail parka, insulated boots. These aren't just artifacts. They're milestones in human resilience. Today's outdoor gear owes everything to these hard-won lessons. Waterproof shells, bug-proof hammocks, and layered clothing all trace back to the battlefield. The wild doesn't care who you are. It tests everyone the same. Preparation and knowledge are your best defense. By learning from the past, we honor those who endured and give ourselves the best chance to thrive. The ultimate tribute to their legacy is to survive, adapt, and respect the power of nature. That's the lesson forged in fire.